What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 32, and I've got a bit of a dilemma this week, like a lot of people. Do I wildcard in 32 or do I free hit in 33? I'm going to talk about both strategies specifically for my team and essentially come to no conclusion, just as a pre-warning. But all I can do is get my current thoughts out there as to the pros and cons of both strategy, and hopefully that might help you, and I'll quickly show you how I did in Game Week 31 as well. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start with an extremely quick look at blank Game Week 31, because I did cover this in the early thoughts video earlier on in the international break. I scored 67 points, which was enough to take me to 754th in the world, which is not quite my highest rank of the season so far, but it's not far off. And with a wildcard free hit and bench boost still to play, I'm hoping I can maybe kick on from here. The points mostly came from 3 players. So Bruno Fernandes, captain, got 26. That was against Bournemouth. Arguably, should have had another penalty in that game as well, but I won't get into that again. Anthony Gordon was my transfer in for Salah, who was injured. He got 10 points. Very early on in that game against Sunderland as well. I was hoping he would kick on and get an even bigger score, but I cannot complain with 10. Wilson got 9 against Burnley, and then Elliot Anderson chipped in as well with a 5-pointer. Elsewhere, Thiago and Anderson were my highest scorers outside of that with 4 points. So 67, extremely nice in a blank game week. No hits taken so far this season. 754th in the world. Let's take a look at game week 32, which is proving confusing. So as it stands, I haven't activated any chips for game week 32. I'm still trying to work out what to do, and I am between 2 main strategies. So wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, or free hit 33, wildcard 35, bench boost 36. I no longer have my triple captain, so it's only the other 3 chips that I'm looking at. They are the main 2 strategies that I'm considering. Are there other ones that can work? Absolutely. Everyone's team is a little bit different, but my priority really is to bench boost as soon as I can after wildcard to give myself the best chance of nothing going wrong in between. So I don't want to do something like wildcard 32, bench boost 36, wildcard 33, bench boost 35. I'd rather get it done the week afterwards if I can. This is what my team looks like at the moment going into game week 32. I've got 7.4 million in the bank because I don't own any of Palmer, Saka, Salah or Haaland, and I've got 2 free transfers. Now, I'm not going to go through defence, midfielders and forwards like I usually do in these videos. I've got the whole team up at once because I think it'll make more sense in terms of why I'm maybe looking at one strategy over the other. Now, on paper, this team looks absolutely fine. If this was game week 15 or 16, just a regular game week, no doubles and blanks coming up, I'd probably just roll, even though I've got Wilson against Liverpool away, to give myself an extra free transfer next week, more flexibility. But obviously, we have got doubles and blanks coming up, so I don't necessarily want to do that. Defensively, I think things look pretty good. Raya and Gabriel against Bournemouth at home, Van Dijk against Fulham at home, Munoz against Newcastle at home. I've got a double up on Man United attack in Burmo and Fernandes. Fernandes, of course, captain. He's the best option this week. Gordon against Palace away. Wilson against Liverpool away. Anderson against Villa at home. That's Elliot Anderson. And then Ekitike and Thiago up front. Ekitike's got Fulham at home. Thiago's got Everton at home. The only 2 concerns I have mainly is one, playing Wilson against Liverpool away. Can Fulham score against Liverpool? Absolutely. But on paper, it's not a great fixture. So can I maybe rectify that with 2 free transfers? And Ekitike played 78, 79 minutes in the Champions League against PSG. Does he definitely start against Fulham at home? Now, I think he will, but there are some doubts there. When Slot made the first lot of substitutions, there were 4 players that came off, including Szoboszlai. So it was like he was subbing off his main players, basically. Isak did come on, but Slot said before the game he's got a maximum of 20 minutes, so I'm not sure he can start against Fulham. That doesn't mean Ekitike definitely will, because they could play Gakpo through the middle or something like that, but I think Ekitike probably starts, but he definitely gets subbed early again, ready for that second game against PSG. So slight concern over Wilson, slight concern over Ekitike. I don't think the Ekitike worries are enough to bother doing anything about him this week. So potentially, with 7.4 million in the bank, I could sell Guiu rather than any of the other players in my 11 to Jarrod Bowen, who's got Wolves at home this week. That would give me a 3-4-3 team with one free transfer left, and then I would bench Harry Wilson. That's if I'm not wildcarding in game week 32. And I think you'll agree that team looks pretty good. And I got to be honest, I'm going to talk about a wildcard 32 team later on because I'm still considering that strategy. And every time I get close to activating the button, I look at the defense and I look at my team for 32, and I just keep saying, how can I activate the wildcard? Is the bench boost that important? So I'm really struggling with what to do here. But I think most people will agree on paper, that team looks absolutely fine. Is it perfect? Is that the team I would choose for game week 32 if I was on a free hit? Probably not, but I don't think it's miles off. And I'd still have one free transfer left, which means when I get to game week 33, I'll have two again. Now, one thing to consider if you're on free hit 33 is also what your team will look like in game week 34. Because if you're not wildcarding until 35, there's 32 and 34 to think about. This is what the team will look like in game week 34 with two free transfers. Now, because I've not bought Haaland or Salah, and I've done Guiu to Bowen instead, that means I can then play Wilson in game week 34 with Aston Villa at home, and then I can bench Gordon if I want to against Arsenal away, which is quite nice for two reasons. One, it's a difficult fixture, although he's not a terrible option for that week because he is on penalties. I suspect he'll start number 9 again. But I've also got Raya and Gabriel. So this is what the team looks like for 34. Raya and Gabriel against Newcastle at home. Van Dijk, Palace at home. Anderson, Joachim in this case, Villa at home. Fernandes and Mbeumo double up against Brentford at home. Fernandes will definitely be captain again that week. Harry Wilson, Villa at home. Elliot Anderson, Sunderland away. And then my front three is Thiago, Man United away, Ekitike, Palace at home, and then Bowen, Everton at home. That looks pretty good. Again, is that close to what a free hit would look like in 34? Probably not, but I don't think it's miles off. Also, I've been thinking about, I've not put a team together, but I've been thinking about what a free hit 34 team might look like. One player ideally I would like to go for, because Liverpool are playing Palace, is Salah, but Salah just was on the bench against PSG and didn't come on at all. Now, maybe that's because he's not long back from injury and he played against Man City at the weekend in the FA Cup and Slot didn't want to risk him. We don't know. But that's not a good sign, I don't think, that against PSG they're down, he's on the bench, and he's not part of the 5 subs that were made. So if I was free hitting in 34, I'd probably convince myself to risk Salah. But it is a risk with the minutes these days. Now, obviously, there's other players you can choose, but when you're free hitting, you want to go for impactful differentials if you can. I don't know if I can trust Salah anyway. And then someone like Saka, we'd have to wait and see if he's even fit for the Newcastle game. I suspect he will be, but they're kind of the big differentials I would look at. You probably wouldn't, well, you can't go for the likes of obviously Palmer and Haaland because they're not playing. So the point I'm trying to make is, I don't think this team I would have for 34 with 2 free transfers, by the way, is that bad. And in theory, I could just roll into wildcard 35, where I'd then keep my Arsenal players, keep Gordon, probably get 3 Palace for their double, make sure I've got the right 3 City as well, which would still probably be Nico O'Reilly, Haaland and Semenyo, but you never know what might happen. And I've got 3 free transfers for the rest of the season. Honestly, if it wasn't for the bench boost, I would be absolutely happy with this plan. So the team looks all right. I can get Jarrod Bowen with 1 free transfer. I can get to game week 34 with 2. And if everything goes right, I can just play that team and then have 3 free transfers to 35. If Ekitike is a bit of a concern, let's say Isak's built up some match fitness, then maybe I could sell him. I don't know if there's many other forwards I would want to buy for game week 34, but I would have the moves to do it. Like, look, I probably wouldn't risk Šeško. I'm not sure about Gyökeres, maybe. There's really not a huge amount of options, like Jimenez against Villa at home. Maybe Watkins, you could take a punt there. Brobby against Forest at home. There's options there, but probably none that are exciting enough. I'd probably just risk Ekitike. So that is one strategy. Just to make the Bowen move and free hit in 33, get 11 double game week players, and then bench boost in 36 after wildcarding in 35. The bench boost in 36 would be 4 single game week players. It wouldn't be as good as 33, but my team is pretty nice right now. And if, for example, the league is still on when you get to wildcard 35, Arsenal's fixtures are great. Like, who wants to go into Fulham at home, West Ham away, Burnley at home, Palace away with no Arsenal? Now, I could bring some Arsenal in even if I wildcard in 32, but I'd have minimal transfers to do it, and I'd also have to think about getting Crystal Palace players in as well. I've only got 2 free transfers. Basically, let me go back to game week 32 with Jarrod Bowen transfer. I've basically told myself if I had more free transfers, I would lock in game week 32 wildcard, and I would just go for a bunch of players that look good in 32 and sell them to doublers in 33. But I've only got 2 free transfers, which is still pretty good, but it's not quite good enough. So I really like this strategy of getting Bowen in, running through till 35, apart from free hitting 33 and just wildcarding in 35. So that is one strategy I'm looking at. Let's talk about the wildcard. So this is the current draft that I'm looking at for wildcard 32. Couple of things to mention. One, I've not yet activated the chip, and I don't intend to do so, if at all, until Friday. I know I might miss out on some price changes in between, but I'm not that concerned about that. I'd rather get this decision right. And I think this has got over 3 million in the bank anyway. So price changes shouldn't matter too much, although that could be famous last words. When I'm in game week 37, 0.1 million short, you can come back and clip this up. The other thing to say is, this is not a final draft. And I'm going to talk through what I like about it and what I'm struggling with. So for example, I've got 2 single game week players for 33 in this team. Bruno Fernandes, who I think is an absolute certainty for wildcard 32, and I won't sell him in 33. And Thiago as well. Basically, as I've already said, if I had more free transfers, I could convince myself very easily to wildcard in 32 because I could have Fernandes, Thiago, Gabriel, etc., and then sell a couple of them in 33. But with 2 free transfers, I do not want to use all my moves in 33, then get to game week 35 with just 1 free transfer. It's just not flexible enough. So the maximum I think I'm willing to commit is 1 transfer. But ideally, I don't even want to use that. So I'm not convinced by Thiago necessarily. I might just start with João Pedro. And people will say, well, you could just put Gabriel, you could put Fernandes, you can put Thiago and have single game weekers on your bench in 33. But if I'm doing that, I might as well just save the bench boost for later and free hit 33. The more single game week players I start with that I'm not willing to transfer in 33 to get rid of, the less reason I see to wildcard. I want to maximize the doubles for the bench boost if I'm going with this strategy. So I've got Verbruggen, not Verbruggen, and Van Heck. I think they are pretty much certainties. And Burnley away is not that bad in game week 32. I've got Senesi in my back 3 because I've also gone for Hill from Bournemouth because their double in 33 is quite nice. Is it good to wildcard Senesi in against Arsenal away? Absolutely not. But if I put Gabriel in instead, that's then Gabriel and Thiago that I would want to sell in game week 33. I think basically, as good as Gabriel is, I would want to take him on for Man City away. And then I'm free hitting in 34 anyway, so I could bring him back for that. And also, there's a part of me that thinks, if I've only got Gabriel from the Arsenal defence, because of how highly owned they are overall, I would then need the clean sheet to get wiped out anyway. So then I'm basically hoping for attacking returns, which is, of course, he's capable of. But I think in that case, where I've only got 1 Arsenal defender, I'd probably just take it on. Now, I could start with Gabriel, and instead of Thiago, have João Pedro and sell Gabriel rather than Thiago. But again, I think I would rather just go for the attacker. So it's really not great having Senesi. But if you want to maximise the doublers, I don't really see a better way around it unless I go for a Chelsea defender instead, like Cucurella. But Bournemouth's double in 33 is better. And obviously, Senesi and Hill are both really good for defensive contributions. And O'Reilly's basically a no-brainer. Would I want to play a defender against Chelsea away in most circumstances? Not really. But given how good he is moving forward, he's kind of got to be in there. And then the defenders on the bench are Hill from Bournemouth, who I've already mentioned, then Strack from Leeds, because Leeds double in 33 is pretty nice. The defence is probably the thing I'm struggling to get over the most. Because when I go back to my Game Week 32 team after 1 transfer, Raya, Gabriel, Van Dijk and Munoz on paper is so much better than that wildcard team. And I know it's not just a wildcard for Game Week 32. It's also for bench boost in 33. And the team holds up pretty well in theory 35 onwards as well. So it's not just about 32, but how good does that defense look? It's about as good as it's going to get, in my opinion, unless you're, free hitting in 32. Raya and Gabriel just great. Munoz super attacking. And Van Dijk, okay, he's not been amazing all season, but we know he's capable of getting points, especially in a game like Fulham at home. So that's what I'm struggling with the most. In terms of the attack, it maybe doesn't look quite as good on paper because of the fixtures, but actually I think when you drill down to it, it's really not that bad. So Bruno Fernandes captain, everyone's going to have him. Cole Palmer against Man City at home. He's not going to be a differential in terms of people wildcarding in 32, but I don't think his ownership's going to massively spike from non-wildcarders. So I wouldn't call him a differential, but he's not super high-owned template player either, at least not yet. Although, to be fair, I guess people will free hit in 33, so actually his ownership's going to be high, and forget everything I just said, I'm talking nonsense. But either way, like Palmer against City at home, instead of Mbeumo against Leeds at home, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm not saying Palmer's miles better, but I don't see not having Mbeumo as this massive problem. Semenyo's obviously been great for most of the season, really good since he's moved to City as well. Chelsea away, and Gross has got Burnley away. If you look at my current Game Week 32 team, like, is Semenyo miles worse than Gordon? I'd rather have Gordon for what it's worth, especially with penalties, but I don't think it's a huge issue. And then Gross against Burnley away, up against Anderson against Villa at home, I think that's fine. So I'm not too concerned about that. If you look at the front line, Haaland against Chelsea away, I mean, I'm more than happy with that compared to like a Ekitike. I've still got Thiago, and then Calvert-Lewin against Man United away instead of Bowen, I guess. Again, I'd probably rather have Bowen. So the attack, I think, is less of a concern. And I don't think the wildcard attack is actually that much worse than the normal team attack. It's the defense that's the big problem. But obviously the big reason to wildcard 32 is then you get this Game Week 33 team. This uses one transfer, which is Thiago to João Pedro. I would have one free transfer left. I probably wouldn't sell Bruno Fernandes to someone like... I mean, I've got a Chelsea spot free, so I could go Enzo Fernandez, for example, or Neto. I don't see me doing that. So I've got 14 double game week players, and my only single game weeker is Fernandes, and that's bench boost. So the bench would be Verbruggen and Van Hecke against Spurs away, Chelsea at home, Fernandes against Chelsea away, and Struijk against Wolves at home, Bournemouth away. That's a pretty nice bench. So it's the same dilemma everyone else is having. Is that bench boost good enough to wildcard into this team instead of having this team? I think when you look at the fixtures, ignoring the play, like, it's really hard to back against my current Game Week 32 team with one transfer to Bowen. But is this wildcard team awful? I don't think it is. I think it's capable of doing fine in 32 and not being that far behind. So I think maybe you drop a little bit in 32, but hopefully you gain massively in 33. And honestly, I look at that Game Week 33 team and think I've got to wildcard into that bench boost. It looks really good. But every time I go to activate the chip, I keep looking at my Game Week 32 team thinking, why am I wildcarding this? It's just a constant back and forth. It's not trying to create content and creating a dilemma and I really know what I'm doing. A lot of people think that when I go into the deadline stream, I know exactly what I'm doing. I got no idea right now. I'm just going back and forth, back and forth. Game Week 32 team looks great. Why do I need to wildcard? Well, why do I need to wildcard? Because the bench boost in 33 looks great. Okay, but then the defense in 32 is terrible. Earlier on in the week, I said if the deadline was in 5 minutes when I was making a video, I would probably free hit 33. If the deadline was in 5 minutes, I think I would wildcard. It just makes sense to me to try and maximize the bench boost. Like, that's probably one of the biggest differentials I've got left. And I quite like the idea of still having Bruno Fernandes. If I free hit in 33, the main 11 will probably be quite similar. Probably not identical, but similar enough. It will not have Bruno Fernandes if I free hit 33. And I know it's Chelsea away, but I quite like having him on the bench boost and then 3 double game weekers. And I think this team stands up quite well from 35 onwards. Like, Palmer will maybe be a slight differential in Game Week 35. Because I think people that wildcard that week, if they're looking to maybe if you're wildcard in 35, you've got no bench boost. It's a bit different. But if you're wildcard 35, bench boost 36, I don't think you can afford Palmer. So he will be somewhat of a differential, but not for 33. But I'd only have 2 free transfers in game week 35. No Arsenal, no Gordon, no Palace. So when I get into game week 36, I'd have 3 transfers. But I've got to hope some of these other players do well because I can't get all of Gabriel, another Arsenal player, Gordon, and 3 Palace. It's just not going to happen. So I really need the bench boost to hit big. So I'm leaning towards wildcard, but I'm telling you, after I finish recording this video and I think about it some more, I'll be back the other way. And then by the time we get to Friday, I'll be back to wildcard. Then we'll be on the deadline stream. I'll be thinking about free hit. I almost need something to happen in the press conferences to swing it one way or another. I think it's worth... I don't want to make this video too much longer, so I'll wrap it up now. I think if we get to Friday in the press conferences and one of my current 11 that I'm intending to play picks up an injury or is a doubt, I think that will just push me into wildcard. I'm looking for something to swing me one way or the other. So let's say Slot said Ekatike is a doubt. I'd probably just wildcard. I'd probably use that as the excuse to do it and just hope that the defense isn't awful, basically. And maybe it won't be, right? Like, let's take Munoz against... Like, Munoz is obviously at home, which is better. But is O'Reilly that much worse than Munoz this week? I don't think so. And at least the Brighton players have got Burnley. So then it's just a really... again, this is the problem, right? I'm saying I'll probably wildcard. And then I go back to the wildcard and I'm putting Senesi into the 11. It just doesn't make sense. So maybe I go João Pedro and I switch Senesi to a better player like Gabriel and then use the transfer on him. But again, that feels rubbish to just have one Arsenal defender. I feel like at that point I just go against. Anyway, I'm rambling now. How good does that Game Week 33 team look? I think pretty nice. I'm not massively happy about having João Pedro longer term, but maybe he could be one of my... The problem with João Pedro is... When I'm thinking about Arsenal, Gordon and Palace players, at no point do I want the forward. So I feel like if I get João Pedro in, I'm kind of stuck with him. Now, I could just keep Thiago because he's got Fulham at home in 33, but then that's a second single game weeker. Is that worth it? I don't think so. At that point, maybe I don't wildcard. I think by Friday deadline, I'm going to end up wildcarding, but I make no promises. If you've enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I will be back tomorrow with final thoughts early on in the morning and a deadline stream as well. The deadline is 6:30 PM UK time on Friday this week, so don't miss that. The deadline stream will start at 4:30. I'll see you soon. Let me know in the comments below. What should I do?